Hello, historians. It is your virtual video for September 21st, 2021. Too bad we have to do it this way. Hopefully we'll be back together by next week. But for this week, you're going to get a couple of these virtual videos in your email. And so after the first, we're going to go right into it here. After the first major civilizations arose in the Fertile Crescent, trade began to spread civilization to the east, to the Indus River Valley in India, and then on to the Yellow River Valley in China. Remember, river valleys are just great places for civilizations to grow up. You know, you have water, you have that will water your crops. Certain places flood, like in Egypt, the Indus River Valley, they flood and they fertilize your land. And they're good for transportation, for getting and going places based, on boat travel. And ancient China was the superpower of this era. So we'll get to that in a minute. Asia is the world's largest continent, okay? It shares the landmass of Eurasia with Europe, okay? There's no true division between geographic division, or anything that divides, like a waterway or anything that divides Asia from Europe. So they actually use the Ural Mountains. I'll hold this up for you. This is my globe, as you can see. And I can look here, this whole green part up here in the northern part. Why is north up and south down? I don't know, but that's how it is in our world. Right here, this black line, if you can see that is the Ural Mountains. That divides Europe on the west from Asia on the east, okay? And we're gonna look at that today. Sorry, I was gonna tell you something else about I was gonna show you this. This is what Ural Mountains, that's how it's spelled. So you see it and you know what it is. Okay, so most of the country of India, I put my globe down too soon. Most of the country of India, where are you, India? Here it is. It's this kind of lavender country. It's like a triangle shape and it extends down into the Indian Ocean. Okay, that's what this area here is, all north of the equator. All right. And so India is a peninsula and it's central between China and the Middle East. So India becomes the ancient world's largest trading center. India also gave the world important new ideas, including the numbering system that we use, starting with the number 0. Also, the religions of Hinduism and Buddhism grew up in India, unfortunately. So today, India is the second most populous country in the world after China, and India is the world's largest democracy. The capital is New Delhi, and India and nearby countries form a region that is known as the Indian subcontinent or Southern Asia. So after civilization develops in Mesopotamia and Egypt, around those rivers, right, river valleys, it spreads to India. And the earliest civilization grows up along the Indus River Valley. It's called the Indus River Valley Civilization. It has a written language. It has large cities with very sophisticated plumbing systems, interestingly enough. And they were the first people that we know of in the world to grow cotton as a crop. Cotton will, in many ways, change the world. Cotton was grown in the United States because it was so desirable in England. They called it King Cotton, and it also led to the slavery and slave trade in the United States growing very rapidly in the southern parts of the United States. So cotton is great, but cotton also created some issues in the world. And so ships and overland trade caravans connected India with Mesopotamia and Egypt in this early international trading network, probably the first trading network in the world. So the Indus Valley civilization lasted for about 1,000 years. We don't really know why it went into to decline, other than it seems that they had issues with their crops. We don't really know why. It may have been that for a period of time the climate got cooler and drier, and so their crops didn't grow as well. Maybe the river didn't flood like it had before, so it's a little mysterious why that happened. So another thing that is well known about India is their caste system, C-A-S-T-E. And the caste system is a system that says people are born into permanent classes for life. They belong to a caste. They have to marry within that caste. And so there were 4 main castes with very complicated rules. The first was the priests, then the warriors, then the merchants, and then the common people. There was also a 5th group, which was not a caste, but they were called the untouchables, and they didn't belong to any caste. So obviously the work of the priests, the warriors, and the merchants that's pretty obvious what they did. The common people were mostly peasants, laborers, and most of the people in India were this common class, and they had limited rights. So like I said, and then we have the untouchables. The untouchables were not considered fully human. They performed the worst jobs in society, like skinning animals, cleaning toilets, burying the dead, things that other castes didn't want to do. The caste seems unfair to us, but it was how their society was organized. And one thing it did do was avoid having slavery. The untouchables were not slaves. They were compensated for their work. They lived peacefully together for a long time. So without the slavery that was in most ancient cultures. So no longer can people discriminate against castes in modern India. That has been outlawed. It's against the law, but it still has influence about like what kind of jobs you can get or who you can marry. The oldest major religion outside of Christianity and Judaism is Hinduism, and it believes in reincarnation. It believes in karma. It means like if you do good stuff while you're alive, you'll be reincarnated as something better. If you do bad stuff, you'll be reincarnated as something terrible, like a fly or something like that. In 500 BC, a young Hindu prince who was raised in luxury saw suffering in the world, and he left his wife and baby son and became a monk, wandering around everywhere seeking a way to end suffering. And the result of this searching was him forming a new religion, like Hinduism, also false, but it's called Buddhism. And Buddha believed in, which was what this young Indian prince changed his name to Buddha, and that's why we call it Buddhism. He believed in reincarnation and thought that people, if they did good things in their life, they would achieve what he called nirvana. We would probably call that heaven. And Buddhism spreads east to India, and Buddhism kind of gets combined and commingled with Hinduism. Buddhists are found in the largest number nowadays in East Asia and Southeast Asia. One of the greatest empires of India was called the Gupta Empire. It was Indians' classical period. It was its golden age. It was the high point of Indian history, of art and drama and literature and science were all flourishing. And it's during this Gupta Empire that mathematicians invented the zero, the amazing number that has no value, but gives value to the place of other numbers. The zero made it possible to calculate numbers faster and more accurately, and it was adopted all over the world. Almost everywhere anyone does math, they use zero, like we do, of course. Another thing that Gupta doctors did was they figured out how to save people from smallpox, which was a dreaded disease get pock marks all over your body. The pock marks leave scars. They have pus in them. But it was that pus that is what they figured out was like a vaccine or an inoculation. And they would take the pus from someone suffering from smallpox. They would make a small cut in a healthy person's arm, and they would put the pus in that cut. And that would get the antibodies, the things that kill off germs, right, into their bloodstream and keep them from ever getting smallpox. Now, nowadays in our world, smallpox has been eradicated. So we don't give smallpox vaccinations anymore, but I got a smallpox vaccination when I was young. You can't really see it anymore, but maybe you can see it a little bit. There's just a kind of a shadowy scar on my arm, and that was where I got my smallpox vaccination. And now we don't have them anymore. So smallpox is only in the world in a safe place where it's saved in case they ever need to make more vaccine from it, but it's kept very carefully contained, so we never have that again. And so farmers also during this Gupta Empire figure out how to take sugarcane juice and dry it into crystals, and we get sugar that can easily be stored and traded over long distance for the first time ever. And so in Europe, cotton cloth and sugar were highly valued in Europe. And the other thing that was highly valued was spices. And they people are eating meat, but they butcher an animal and they can't refrigerate it. There is no refrigeration. And so they keep eating that same meat for a few days, and then it starts to get a little off. If you have spices to add to your meat or fancy spices you can make into sauces, then the meat that's getting a little older doesn't taste so bad. And so spices were very, very desirable. Of course, it's spices that is what sends Cristobal Colon, Christopher Columbus, off on his journey to discover a new world, new to Europe and Asia anyway. The people living there didn't think it was new. So people of ancient times basically had, in the Eastern world, had four basic patterns for making a living. Some were hunters, stalking and wild game herds. Most people lived in farming villages. Another group lived in the cities. Most of their wealth is supported by the agriculture. And the fourth group lived in pastoral societies. These are nomadic herders of the grasslands of Asia. They didn't settle down in one place like farmers keeping livestock like in a pen or a barn or something. They moved their animals, which were tame. They domesticated these animals, sheep, goats, cows, horses, and camels, from pasture to pasture throughout the seasons. They were mobile. And in protecting their animals, they developed military tactics. So these pastoral nomads of what were called the steppes, which are the plains, the grassland plains of Central Europe. Oh, I forgot to show you. This is how you spell Gupta, just in case you were wondering. So these pastoral people became skilled at using their horses in warfare. And sometimes they would raid settled communities. And these nomadic raiders got better and better at it and went farther and farther. And they attacked places like Jericho and Sumer and the Gupta Empire and other places. And so many governments of Eurasia began with nomads sweeping in from the steppes and just taking control. Centuries of warfare between nomadic raiders like the Huns and the Mongols, they advanced the military of Eurasia as well, and technology also, to protect themselves from these nomadic raiders. And so the world's fourth greatest civilization will be China. Guess what? Guess where it starts? Along a river valley, the Yellow River of northeastern China, where they grow wheat and farming moved later to the Yangtze River. This is how you, sorry, oh no, did I already show you that? Oh well, I guess I didn't write that down. It's Y-A-N-G, Yangtze, T-Z-E. Becomes the center of Chinese civilization, and early Chinese culture grew in isolation in a lot of ways because of physical barriers and long distances that kept them separated from the civilizations of Eurasia. So the world's highest mountain range, the Himalayas, they used to say Himalaya, but now they say Himalaya there. That's how they pronounce it there, so I'm going to pronounce it that way. Himalayas. They separate China from India and keep them apart. And nearly 1/4, 1 out of every 4 people in the world live in China today. It's the world's most populous country and has the fastest growing economy. China was a superpower in the past, and it has become a superpower again in this century. Its neighboring countries, Mongolia, Korea, and Japan, form a region along, I'm not going to pull the globe up right now, along the Pacific Ocean known as East Asia or the Far East. Okay, on Thursday, we will be talking a little bit more about China. We'll talk about Confucius, and we'll talk about the Great Wall and the Silk Road. If you remember, we had the Bronze Age. After the Bronze Age, we have the Iron Age. This is when people learned how to use a draft of air from a furnace. Sorry, turn my notes around. Or a bellows. Have you ever seen a bellows where you like push the handles together and it blows air? Or they also make big ones that you can go up and down and they push air into the fire to produce much hotter temperatures than you can without. And those temperatures are hot enough to melt iron from iron ore and to shape it into tools and weapons. Iron is much stronger than bronze, and it's much less expensive to make because iron ore is a lot easier to find than the tin you need to make bronze. And ironworking not only meant better tools and weapons, it meant lots more often a major technological change. Ironworking probably began in the Middle East around 1200 BC and quickly spread. Iron has a big impact on agriculture and warfare. Iron plow blades and hoes mean you can work tougher, heavier soil that extends agriculture to land that you couldn't cultivate before. That means population grows as there's more agriculture, more food for people to eat, the population grows. Armies grow bigger and deadlier because they have more effective, less expensive iron weapons and armor. The Iron Age continues to this present day, but it kind of morphed into the Industrial Age, which of course morphed into the Digital Age. Okay, that's it for now. You'll get another virtual video on Thursday, and hopefully we'll be back together next Tuesday. So bye for now.